emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and,
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus.
You have accessed entry 1422.RV0613, certificate number 40197, the Western Washington Windshield Epidemic.
We talk a lot about Western Washington, the Seattle area.
Too much, probably.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of listeners in other countries and all around the United States and Canada.
Some guy in Bavaria or Queensland right now is thinking, was ist das?
Yeah. I mean, the people in Queensland are really saying, was ist das? Because it's their local dialect.
That's my Australian accent. Like,
was ist das?
If I'm in Australia and I see a cool souvenir, I'm like, was ist das, mate?
You know, I was reading something the other day, some fan comment that said that they had stopped listening to a podcast I was on. Obviously not because of me. I'm amazing, but because
of me.
No, not you either. People love you. No, it was one of my co-hosts apparently bagged on Australia enough that this Australian listener was like, "I'm out. I can't take it anymore. I can't take all this Australia bagging."
Wow.
And I was like, "Geez, I didn't realize it had gotten so bad. I would never bag on Australia, except Australian college students traveling around the world, but everybody hates them."
Do you feel like the Australians are unusually thin-skinned?
No.
That's what I thought.
Quite on the contrary.
I thought they would be the opposite of that. This guy is temperamentally not a good Australian.
No, it was a Sheila, and Sheila was I don't know. She just felt like enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Also a great 80s metal band. Great.
If she felt confident about her love and patriotism for Australia, she would not have been annoyed by your co-host. It's clearly exposing some of her own doubts and skepticism about the natural goodness and order of Australia.
I feel like what it was she was annoyed by the co-host, and this was just some excuse for saying, there are enough John Roderick podcasts that I can listen to him all week long without interruption and still avoid this one podcast.
Do you think she listens to Omnibus? Should I try it out by saying some offensive things about Australia?
Well, you would have to dislodge yourself from your anti-Canada hatred long enough to even have hatred for anybody else.
Australia is not the Canada of the Southern Hemisphere. New Zealand is the Canada. Australia is the America.
Listen, the New Zealanders now are like all like grabbing the arms of their like local chairs.
They know. They're like, he's correct. He's correct. We're Canada.
You've been to Australia?
No.
I haven't either.
Oh, see?
This is embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
We have a lot of listeners there. We hear from them all the time. It's because they're talkative people.
And like you, garrulous. Like you, yes. I would love to go.
Yeah.
But I've got a kid in school, which means I travel in the summer, which is the bad time to see the Southern Hemisphere.
No, it's a great time if you're in the northern Southern Hemisphere.
Gold Coast, yeah.
It's always sunny in the Gold Coast.
But I don't want to go to New Zealand or Sydney in their winter.
It's never that cold, though, is it?
No, but it's just rainy. It's just like here.
Yeah.
It's like, I've discovered Seattle. I've gone from Seattle summer, which is nice, to Seattle winter.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a time machine going to Australia.
Well, one day we'll figure this out. Maybe someone will invite us and they will actually be able to like pay money and set something out rather than the 10 emails I get a year that are like, come to Australia. I don't even know how to do it.
They're Scottish?
Oi! Oh, was is das?
We are some Scottish people who live in Australia now. Come have a whiskey with us.
I get invitations all the time, but it's like, yeah, put some Australian dollars in front of that. And, and they're not worth very much. So they have to double the Australian dollars.
Put a normal amount of dollars, double it if you're going to put an AU.
But this is our story today is one that involves a lot of places, but at least as far as I could tell, not Australia and New Zealand. The epidemic did not go that far.
Well, if they're going to be left out of an episode, an entry of Omnibus, they would prefer to be left out of one with the word epidemic in the title.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
would assume.
And I think some of that might have to do with the way the wind blows. The wind, typically the Pacific Ocean wind, does not blow towards Australia.
It doesn't?
Well, no, I don't think so.
What do they get? Indian Ocean winds?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I feel
Who
like
can say, really?
I feel like it's a gyre, just like the Atlantic winds. The gyre goes down Asia and then across and then up South America, right? Isn't that
Is that right?
the way mostly?
I think doesn't our gyre come down on the West Coast?
Well, no, I mean all the wind at my house comes from the south.
We get all that cold water though. I'm thinking of current.
It comes the other way though. Well, maybe. I mean, who knows?
I think
who
that's
could
why-
even know?
There's literally no way to find out. I think our water here is colder than Atlantic beaches at the same latitude because it's current coming clockwise from the north.
The cold, yeah.
Whereas they get clockwise coming up from the Caribbean.
But I think it's coming up from the south and then swinging around. All of our meteorological friends and our bat ichthyologists, they're all like writing. They're sitting down with their black pencils and writing.
It's all chaos
strongly
theory.
worded letters.
It seems as though the current is coming from the north, but in fact, that means Australia does not get wind from the east.
Yeah, I only wish that we had read a book from the 1930s where they probably already knew this stuff.
It's probably older than that. I'm going to say Alexander Humboldt figured all this out.
It might have been Captain James T. Kirk.
You think Captain Kirk? I thought you were going to say Captain James Cook.
No, James T. Kirk.
Because he could have.
Right? He's the one that discovered the Sandwich Islands when he went back in time in that episode where they went to San Francisco and dressed like Civil War soldiers.
He saved the whales.
Right.
People in the future sure have like a lot of old-timey hobbies.
I don't remember that very clearly. It was a long time ago.
People in the future, here's what I've learned from Star Trek. People in the future are just always doing little Shakespeare plays with their friends. They're doing ships in bottles. They're very interested in like gangsters and Nazis and the Great Depression. It's really
just like us.
Yeah, it's what a baby boomer aged guy in the 60s was into.
A baby boomer age script writer.
But they're in the 23rd century and they're still like, the robot is playing in his violin concerto tomorrow night in 10 Forward.
In my holodeck.
Let's go see.
Nothing has happened between 1970 and 2300.
I mean, it makes sense. You don't want to try to predict what the jazz music of the intervening centuries was like.
Do you remember the Buck Rogers television series of the
I do.
Early 80s? They often tried to make culture where people were dancing with ribbons to electronic clarinet music. Remember that?
Do you think it ages well? Like if you watched it now, you would be like, that was exactly right. That is what the music of the future is going to be.
What I think aged well is they all were wearing jumpsuits.
Oh, sure.
And jumpsuits, I have been waiting since the Buck Rogers television show for jumpsuits to really become a kind of like uniting garment where all people just go, you know what, jumpsuits. It solves so much. It's really equalizing.
I mean, it is, but also it isn't because jumpsuits are much more revealing about what you actually look like.
Right, but if you're in a world where what you look like doesn't matter,
I see.
If it's total acceptance, yeah, like hey man, everybody wins.
Ozempic has been invented.
No, I'm saying like all body shapes look equally amazing,
equally accepted
in a jumpsuit. It takes away all of the expense of fashion. It takes away all of the, the crap.
I feel like you'd be against that.
I am now that I think about it.
So you would spend none of your time thinking
or shopping for fashion.
That's the idea. That's the utopian idea. But of course, everybody would put on belts and headscarves to express their individuality.
You just get hanky codes again.
Hanky codes, right?
They're tweaky codes.
I don't. Yeah.
Beat a bit a beat.
I don't know. Buck.
Why do you have a polka dot handkerchief in your pocket? Well, Tweaky, in my time, this was a very important part of our culture.
I do feel like I was influenced in the early '80s by a '70s idea of utopia, where people listen to electric clarinet, and it's always in there. It's in the back of my head when people are like, "What do you think of this latest political development?" I'm like, "Well, how much clarinet does it have?"
The first Star Trek movie tried out the jumpsuits briefly.
Yeah.
They were like, we'll put them in jumpsuits. That's the future.
That's the future. But jumpsuits are really fashionable right now. There are like 6 jumpsuits in this house of different colors and cool jumpsuits.
I mean, leggings are halfway to jumpsuits.
Has Mindy not started wearing like a cool 70s mom jumpsuit?
She does wear a cool
See?
set. And I've seen Ariella in one.
That's right. My sister wears them all the time.
I'm kind of against it.
Is that right?
I'm not wearing them. Do you wear them?
No.
Well, see.
I mean, I have one. I have an
Like
insulated one.
if just women wear them, that doesn't do it. That doesn't change the world.
Kind of does it for me. But no, I mean, I have an insulated one to work in the garden in the winter. I'm the only person in the whole area that likes to work in the winter in the garden. And it's, of course, as you said, just like Australia, rainy, wet, and the wind is blowing.
Hey, you got back out of it.
The wind is blowing from a different direction.
Now, you got back out of it to Australia, but
Yeah.
still that has nothing to do with the Western Washington windshield epidemic.
That's true.
Except as an example of a part of the world that was not affected.
Yes,
Should we list all the things that do not have anything to do with windshield epidemics? And then by the process of elimination, everything that's left, like Michelangelo chipping away a piece of marble.
Yeah,
will
just taking away
will
all
be the entry.
of the stuff that isn't the pietà.
Everything we didn't mention is the show.
No, I think that by hour 20, we should be, or by 1 hour and 20 minutes, we should be at the point that we're talking about the great Western Washington windshield epidemic. In fact, maybe I should just start talking about it now.
As a fun surprise, as a little treat.
So we do talk about Seattle and the region, but we have not ever really had an episode specifically located here.
Is that true?
Except for the pig war.
That was San Juan Islands.
Right. What's another one?
We did the floating feet, but those are mostly north of the border.
Yeah, but still the region, right? The Vancouver Island we mostly claim as part of Puget Sound.
The word Seattle has only been in a omnibus episode description with reference to the topic once, and that was the Kalakala. Am I saying that right?
But did we do a whole episode on the Kalakala?
did.
Was I there for that?
It was your show.
I'm not sure about that, but okay. But this is a phenomenon that started here in our region.
Was I there for that? Do you think I have guest hosts sometimes?
You?
Yeah,
Who knows what
do you think
you
I just do my own omnibus sometimes with like Joan Rivers?
I mean, for me, omnibus has been going on since the '60s. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when it started.
You think it's sometimes
Was I there?
like you
Must have been.
You don't do the Friday shows anymore now that you're so successful. Now it's me and Buddy Hackett.
Well, let me just tell you about this. This is something that happened here in our beautiful Pacific Northwest, and I'm sure most futurelings have a mental map of Puget Sound and the Northwest
part
of North America, because we talk about it enough that they're like, oh, sure, Ballard. Right, that's north of the Ship Canal, and Ken lives north of there.
Here's a question. Do you think people not from the Northwest could even have an idea of what Puget Sound looks like? If they were to draw Washington State, does it have the inlet, or does it just have a little notch, if anything?
Well, I mean,
let us know.
The silhouette of the state of Washington is part of Washington State's branding.
I draw it with the little crevice.
Yeah, of course, but it's not a state without it.
But that's because you and I are from here.
The state of Oregon just is a square, except it's kind of tilted on one side.
And don't forget the little bump. Do you draw the bump up by Portland?
You got
to draw the bump
because of the Columbia River. You have to respect the river.
Respect the river. Respect Lewis and Clark.
And Utah looks like a key.
It looks like a key.
Well, a weird key, a key with one notch, right? It's got a little tower in it. It's a square, but it's got a tower.
I think of it as a box missing a corner.
Oh, whoa.
See the Pietà.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind. You think of it as a box missing a corner. I think of it as a box with another box on top of it.
Well, that's because I think Utah should colonize that part of Wyoming,
Right.
and take it back and become kind of a perfect rectangle.
Oh, you don't think it should just give the other rectangle to Idaho?
Yeah, it could. Except
Who would get that? Who would get that?
it would be Idaho, but like a lot of the population of Utah lives in the box.
I know.
They'd be losing. I mean, Salt Lake City is below that level, but only just.
Yeah.
Ogden and Logan are both in the box.
And the thing is, Idaho is already so grotesquely misshapen. No, you know who would get that corner is Wyoming.
No, if it came from Wyoming, it would be a panhandle.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, it would be Idaho, wouldn't it?
Idaho's more sensible than Nevada.
But Idaho doesn't deserve to be a state. I've gone on record before and said Idaho should be divided between Montana, Washington, and Oregon, and maybe, I don't know, Wyoming gets some crap
Shouldn't
part of
Canada
it.
get some?
The top part? No, that should be part of Washington. Idaho.
You think Canada should not get
doesn't make
anything
any sense
below
at all.
nothing below the 48th parallel or
No,
whatever?
I
it is?
do not think they should get anything below. That's
49.
a perfect line. That's the longest undefended border in the world.
I just said 48th, which actually gives them Seattle.
Yeah.
I should not have said that.
No, you shouldn't.
No,
54-40 or fight. I think we should get Calgary.
48 does not give them. Yeah, I was on the radio today on the way, and I heard somebody say
It's 47
Winnipeg.
and a half, right?
Yeah, but they would get Bellingham, and maybe Everett.
Good riddance.
On the way in, I was listening to somebody on the radio say Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I think that should be how you say it, Manitoba.
I think so too. Manitoba. Who's going to complain? The people in Manitoba? No.
I know I'm keeping you from talking about windshields, but if you're out there and you do not live in the Pacific Northwest, send us your idea of what Washington State looks like.
Yeah, draw Washington State and then send us a picture.
I would like to know.
Yeah,
Because
me too.
I don't know if people consider the sound to be
Puget Sound?
part of our outline.
It's one of the great sounds of all the world.
There's not that many sounds.
No, that's what I mean.
Long
That's-
Island has a pretty good one.
I guess. If you live in West Egg.
I don't even know what a sound
No,
consists
if you live
of.
in well, the sound is not on the West Egg side. It's on the other side. It's on the weird fisherman side,
Yes, the weird fisherman
where
side.
Billy Joel lives. No, we don't want anything to do with that. That should all be part of Connecticut.
What is a sound even?
It's an area between two
Like how is it different?
pillows.
How is it different from a bay or
I don't know.
a bite?
Well, I get
a
in
gulf?
trouble all the time. I say, "Oh yeah, over by the ocean," and people are like, "It's not the ocean; it's the sound."
I agree with those people.
Really,
You can't call it the ocean.
it's the ocean. It connects to
No.
the ocean. It's made of salt water. It has whales in it.
It's the sound.
Yeah, which is the ocean.
It's just so different than the ocean. Like looking at a map, you're right. But like if you're going to the beach,
What else is there?
It's you
the
go-
map.
Drive to Ocean Shores.
You're like on the map.
No, if you're actually there, it doesn't feel like the ocean.
It feels like the ocean
It's
to me.
it's flat.
It's got
calm.
whales.
It's calm. It does have whales.
All ocean is flat.
It has whales thanks to Captain Kirk. No, it doesn't get choppy. There's no breakers. It's not oceanic.
It's
It's shallow and sheltered.
I don't know. Have you ever tried to walk across it? It's an ocean.
not
At
an
the
ocean.
bottom, it has the largest octopus in the world. That's an ocean creature.
If I were to buy a Pacific octopus,
Yeah.
if I had the largest octopus in the world, would I be an ocean?
Well, I can't argue with that.
That can't be the only test.
I can't argue with that. It does have a resident pod of whales. They never leave Puget Sound. So doesn't a pod of whales make an ocean?
Here's the thing: like if you were to tell me the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean was the ocean, I'd be
Yes.
like, yeah, that's the ocean.
How is the Caribbean? Sure. All right. What about the Mediterranean? I guess that's a sea.
Yeah, I don't love calling that the ocean, quite honestly.
Okay. I don't either. Yeah. All right.
Oh,
Fine.
I've converted you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, it's not the ocean. As of
it's
this
the,
date.
It's the Mediterranean of Washington.
That's right. That's what we always say. Except we don't eat the octopus.
Anyway, here in Washington, we're a very confused people. We back in the 1950s, according to my mother, when television stations around the United States would do the weather for the nation, they would say, "Now leaving Cleveland and checking out the national weather, here's how it's going in Florida and here's how it's going in New York," and they would talk about maybe Los Angeles and San Francisco, but north of that, there was nothing. Even on the maps of the country, that they would throw up on television stage. It was just terra incognita.
Until 1955.
I think until the World's Fair.
This was the beginning of a sentence. Until 1955, comma, both the southernmost and the westernmost Major League Baseball franchise was the St. Louis Cardinals.
What?
As late as 1955, baseball ended at St. Louis. Nothing to the west, nothing to the south.
Wow.
Like, it just tells you how northeast-centric America was well into the 20th century.
Yeah. I think Elvis going to the top of the Space Needle was the thing that opened up America.
Seattle did not exist until... Do you think that's like a epistemological thing? Something only exists when Elvis sees it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that can't be true now.
That's how I know Vegas. Yeah.
It's got to be Ryan Gosling sees it now. If the Goz has seen it, it exists.
Does he have to keep the list?
Him? No, he's too cool. He's just flying around being cool.
He's got a staff that tells us which things exist.
Yeah, somebody's trailing along behind him going, oh, now that exists. Oh, now that exists. He's never seen me, so.
62 is a big deal for, if you were interested in the Northwest or wanted Viewmaster slides of it, 662 was your time.
And the Beatles came and they fished out the window of the Edgewater Inn, and that also kind of put us on the map not long after.
When was that, 67? What
No,
tour?
no,
They were not
earlier
touring,
than that.
but they were not touring then. It was probably their first concert, right?
Yeah, it was like
64
or 64, yeah. Anyway, we were a little bit of a backwater then, a simpler time, a simpler people. And our story takes place in the spring of 1954. In March of 1954, in Bellingham, the aforementioned Bellingham, which is, I guess, by some definitions, the northernmost and arguably westernmost corner of the continental United States. I mean, the people of Nia Bay that are out on the peninsula claim that title.
Yeah, I don't love calling Bellingham the westernmost part, but...
Yeah, I mean, and all the people in Alaska are like, hey. But, continental United States, Bellingham is certainly right on the Canadian border.
We're going to get notes from people who say continental U.S. is wrong and we should say contiguous.
The contiguous United States.
Do Alaskans care? Do Alaskans say continental United States?
They do. They say continental.
It doesn't bother them because they're on the continent.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. They don't say contiguous states because
who says that?
Yeah, and contiguous is too
They don't say that because
glottal.
no one knows the word contiguous in Alaska.
That's also maybe true. But continental U.S., they say, or the lower 48. Let's call it the lower 48.
There we go.
In Bellingham in March of that year, someone noticed that their windshield was pitted in kind of a noticeable way. Their windshield had pitting damage. It wasn't broken, but there were chips in their windshield.
This is before safety glass, I guess?
Yeah, 54 would have been, I mean, there were still, my truck had windshield, but it was a crack rather than a pit. So safety glass was invented by Edouard Benedictus, a French scientist.
Accidentally.
An accidental, because he was using bottles in a lab, and this was in the early part of the 20th century, 1903.
He dropped a bottle that had some goo in it, and the glass didn't break, and he thought that goo made this glass special.
Magic goo.
And so they were already, I didn't know this, it was already mandated on U.S. cars by the late 30s.
Yeah, if you can imagine, I mean, how damaging it would be to get a windshield broken and it's just shards.
Stabbing you in the neck.
Yeah, so no, it was consistent, we now know, consistent with safety glass, but damage significant enough to the windshield to suggest that it was that it had been vandalized, and the appearance of the pits made it seem like it was the result of BB guns or buckshot. Something had hit this windshield that something that appeared to be with a human origin. And once this first sort of vandalism was reported, very quickly, other people came forward to say that their windshields had also been similarly vandalized.
People nearby in Bellingham.
And just as the kind of it was reported to the authorities, and there was an investigation underway. Who are the teenagers or vandals who are roaming Bellingham with their BB guns, shooting windshields? The BB guns aren't strong enough to break a windshield, but pitting the windshield.
That's what would happen if you shot a BB at a car.
Pretty soon, as we know, a couple of dozen miles away from Bellingham, in Cedro Woolley and in Mount Vernon, Washington, two smaller towns, one of which has a smokestack that's painted to look like a tulip.
Maybe the first time Cedro Woolley has been mentioned on Omnibus.
It's possible.
Or anywhere.
People noticed that their windows had been similarly vandalized, at which point it started to become a police matter. Who is this roving gang?
It's a crime ring now.
That's right.
They can get out of town. They're pitting windshields all over the Tri-County area.
And you can imagine, well, this is all happening in one county.
Wait,
right?
Is Cedar Woolley still in Whatcom County? It's Skagit, right? No?
Is Cedar Woolley? Oh, well, I think, no, Mount Vernon's in Skagit County.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Bellingham's
It's multi-county.
Think how much people are learning now about Washington State geography.
Wait a minute, is Mount Vernon?
I hope you're taking your notes.
It is Skagit County. And there's a wonderful tulip festival there. We highly recommend that you visit during tulip season.
Have you been?
Of course.
Me too, but it's been like 10 years since I've been.
It's been a long time. Because once you see it, you're like, hey.
A lot of tulips.
But my daughter loves the tulip festival, and it is beautiful. There's no argument.
Too beautiful. It's crowded.
Yeah, that's right. It didn't used to be crowded
I know.
because up here, people, who cares,
Now
right?
there's tulip traffic.
But now it's a thing. And they haven't improved the roads because Skagit County, am I right? Yeah. Anyway, so...
it's a mystery.
This does seem like the kind of thing that a group of teenagers would decide, like,
Hard to understand as a crime, though. What's the motivation? What do they possibly have to gain?
I mean, but what is happening with any vandalism? It's just sort of like we're going around, we're tagging buildings.
But at least if you're tagging, you have an ID. Like, this seems very anonymous and kind of hard to notice.
Yeah.
Seems like an unusual kind of teen crime.
But it also feels like to your parents or to the,
And 54 is the height of, like, juvenile delinquency hysteria,
exactly
right? Like,
exactly right. The motorcycle gangs, and Marlon Brando's wearing, like, unwashed jeans. What's that about?
even teenagers themselves are kind of a new idea.
Right.
Teenagers didn't exist before Andy Hardy. I was just playing a Sherlock Holmes themed board game the other night, and I'm reading what the inspector is telling us, and it's like, a group of teenagers, Holmes? And I was like, absolutely not.
No, didn't exist.
Nobody in 1880s London was saying teenagers.
Boo. No, those people were already working in factories and well married by 15.
We called them textile workers. We didn't call them teenagers.
Boot blacks and
right.
chimbley sweeps.
That's right.
Well, by the beginning of April, this had expanded regionally to include the whole sort of northern part of Puget Sound. And there were reports coming in from all the kind of little towns around Bellingham that, yes, in fact, there was something happening. Windows were being damaged.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear.
That's true.
So true in every era.
And so they were reporting it to the police, and the police were somewhat stymied. What exactly, you would think if there were teenage gangs out with BB rifles shooting windows, that somebody would have.
Yeah, they're going to hit a greengrocer at some point.
Yeah, or you'd see a bunch of kids with BB guns. But then by the middle of April, it starts to expand to include the great city of Anacortes. And by the time the reports of windshield damage arrive in Anacortes, the local police, the Anacortes police, have had enough.
They are not letting this crime wave enter their fair city.
And they set up roadblocks. The road to Deception Pass Bridge.
Yeah.
They put a roadblock there. They put a roadblock on the other side where the where the highway goes out to 99.
And they're just checking for BB guns?
They're checking every car. What's going on here? Like, we want to see if this is some gang of thugs that have come down from the mean streets of Bellingham, or they're monitoring the situation, and they're also checking windshields to see if there's windshield damage, and they do find damaged windshields at their checkpoints.
Cars coming into town.
And leaving town, suggesting that there is something, there's mischief afoot, and this is now a regional problem, right? And there are a lot of cars damaged.
The natural barrier provided by Deception Pass cannot keep out these BBs.
And in fact, unfortunately, next, and this is now we're talking about April 13th of 1954. South of the Deception Pass Bridge on Whidbey Island in Oak Harbor, where my sister lives.
But not at the time.
Not at the time. She was yet to be born. But specifically on the Whidbey Island Naval Air Station, window pitting is found. And
it's moving south.
It's moving south, and the commander of the base shuts the base down.
Oh, wow.
There's a team of Marines.
Does he think the Ruskies are pitting his windshield?
Well, this is what we don't know. 75 Marines, probably what was the entire Marine complement, and by Marine I mean U.S. Marines, set out across the base to search for the culprits. And the fact that they got on the base in the first place is a major breach. They search the base and cannot account for the damage. But at this point, if you take the whole region into account, over 2,000 cars have been affected by this phenomenon, which increasingly now seems like there may be another explanation.
Insurance hates it.
Well, and I don't even know if they did have car insurance then. No, they did.
Literally no way to find out.
It's been invented. It was invented by
Edward Benedict. He accidentally invented car insurance shortly after inventing safety glass.
No, it was the Venetians.
That's true. We already covered this. Kind of.
But at this point, it is making regional headlines. The Seattle newspapers have started publishing stories about this, what appears to be a wave of infection, almost, coming down from its origins.
In Canada.
Yeah. And now
in Manitoba.
Increasingly with every hour advancing to the south.
Towards Seattle.
And it becomes headline news in Seattle. You see it, both the morning papers. Seattle used to be one of the great American cities that had a morning paper, the Post-Intelligencer, and an evening paper, the Seattle Times.
Well, no American city does anymore, so
that's right.
It wasn't our fault.
Barely they have a newspaper, and we still have the PI.
No, we don't. Well, online.
We still have the Times, but it's it was always terrible, but now it's really terrible.
Is the PI still online? Because that's always the face-saving thing. We're going to online.
Well, there's one page in the Seattle Times, an opinion page that's branded the PI.
Oh, it is?
Within the Times. It was part of the joint operating.
We'll give you the worst part of the Times, the op-ed page.
Yeah. And we're also going to keep a Times op-ed page to counter your liberal hogwash, your woke baloney. So April 14th, in the PI in the morning, there's a story about it. And it's not the top headline, but it's the second headline in the paper. And then it's also in the evening paper, the Seattle Times. This wave of unexplainable damage to car windshields is approaching Seattle. And sure enough, by the night of April 14th, by 6 p.m. that night, there was a report of 3 cars damaged in a parking lot at the corner of John and 6th. Can you tell me where John and 6th is?
John
and 6th.
Is it?
You were never a Capitol Hill guy.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, John and 6th is not that far from like Cal Anderson, right?
It is because Broadway is 12th.
Oh, Broadway's 12th.
Oh no, Broadway's 10th. Broadway's 10th.
Well, to me, that's close.
Well, yeah, but then there's all those streets, Belmont, Bellhop,
Yeah.
John, Bellevue. So no, in fact, John and 6th is on the other side of the freeway down by the Space Needle.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
all the way down there.
aren't there different kinds of sixths?
No, there's just the 1/6.
There's not like 6th Northeast.
But this is the problem. It goes and then it turns. It's got the, because the city of Seattle was laid out by goats.
I know exactly where John runs just east of the Space Needle.
Yeah.
I can picture that. I just assumed 6th meant it was up towards the numbered streets in Capitol Hill.
No, because it turns down there by the 5 Point. And, it's called the 5 Point for this reason.
This is the best part of the show.
It's one away from 6.
For the vast majority.
But it also then appears in a little closer to your neighborhood by 9 p.m. There's a windshield hit at 82nd and Greenwood.
It appears to have skipped Snohomish County entirely.
Well,
What did they build a dome?
I think there were just no phones in Snohomish County, and like now, few
Just like
cops.
now,
Yeah. And then a wave of reports. On April 15th, it was all across Seattle. Auto sales lots were describing how multiple cars on the lots
That's who's
were
going to
damaged.
notice.
Yeah. And it's getting reports from Ballard. There are police cars with this damage to the windshields. And so it's recognized at this point. The Whidbey Island Sheriff, Tom Clark, says that it's not possible for any human agency to be behind this.
Well, yeah, that must
damage.
have, like, by the time the Times is reporting on this, are they speculating on what this might be now that we know it can no longer be wily teens?
Well, they are. There's a lot of speculation. And Tom Clark on Whidbey suggests that this is some kind of result from hydrogen bomb tests.
This guy was so smart, he wouldn't be on Whidbey.
Well,
Who is he, the sheriff of Whidbey Island?
he's the sheriff.
So
yeah.
0 for 2, basically.
And he says it's got to be some kind of nuclear fallout. And he deploys Geiger counters and goes out with Geiger counters to investigate all the pitted windows.
It's so lame that Tokyo got Godzilla.
Yeah.
And we got slightly
Windshield
pitted windshields.
And there's also now it's starting to there's another factor, which is that these windshields also have mysterious dust on them that appears to be related. And so Sheriff Tom is going around Geiger countering not only the pitting, but also the dust, and also running Geiger counters over people who have been in contact with pitted windows.
And probably thinking they're communists.
It's possible.
Like, this is the kind of Soviet space dust that turns you into a red.
Well, yeah, could be.
You never know.
But the Geiger counter returns null. There's no radioactivity to.
It's too bad. That was a very promising avenue for the case, I thought.
It was. But then someone else realizes that just the year before, the Navy has opened a new massive 1 million watt low frequency radio station in the area right.
Like Bremerton? Or?
Well, no, this is over. This is close. This is, sort of by Rocky Point, kind of middle of the area, sort of around Arlington, but up in the mountains a little bit.
Oh, okay. And
this is a giant low-frequency naval radio station that's designed to communicate with underwater submarines. You can beam these massive kind of waves that take a half a mile to even develop.
You got to hit the submarine just right.
Hit the submarine just right.
Or it'll go under them.
And in an amazing Baader-Meinhof moment for me, I was just, as you know, in Berlin.
Yes.
And I was looking, I went to the top of the Fernsehturm.
That's the TV tower?
Turm, yeah, there in Turm. My pronunciation of the German is so bad.
That's in the east, right?
Yeah, it was in former East Berlin. And I went to the top of it and had an evening there with my family. And it, of course, made me ask the question of the internet, what are the tallest radio towers in Europe? There's a taller one in Russia. But one of the very tallest towers in Europe is in Spain. It's the Torreta del Guardamar.
I don't even know where that is.
It's down in that area south of Valencia, but not all the way around the corner to Malaga. It's in that little area which, although I've been all over Spain, I've never been to this weird little...
Is it like that weird deserty place where like
sort of a weird,
Sergio Leone made movies?
kind of a hump over there that has no major towns, and I'm embarrassed to say I'd never been there. But it also was built by the U.S. Navy as a submarine communication tower.
But it's still there.
It's still there. It's now run by the Spanish Navy to communicate with what I imagine is the massive Spanish naval...
Are they going to invade England again?
I feel like...
Is that their idea?
How many submarines does Spain have? I don't know. But the U.S. built that or that tower in order to communicate with their submarines that were under the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
Or no, under the Mediterranean Sea. Very similar to our Puget Sound.
Yes, not an ocean.
Not an ocean.
Canonically, not the ocean.
But probably in the 1950s, full of American nuclear submarines, and throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Interesting to me that would have been Franco's Spain.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So the U.S. Navy was making some deal with Franco.
We're fine.
We're going to build this tower, and what are you going to do about it?
The Russians are the real bad guys.
That's
We
right.
got to talk to our nuclear subs.
Yeah, our fascist friends agree. There's nothing worse than communism.
It's funny to imagine the 50s Mediterranean being full of... Like, imagine Tom Ripley killing that dude in his rowboat, and suddenly a U.S. nuclear sub rises out of the water, and it's like, put down the oar, Mr. Ripley.
Yeah, pretty hot, right?
I'm very talented.
I'm sure we were sending subs into the Black Sea on an hourly basis.
Yeah.
And they were tootling around.
The Bosporus
over there.
is getting crowded. Sorry, there's some subs coming out. We got to wait.
Subs coming out. Everybody hold it. Hold it. But yeah, lots of reasons for the U.S. to be screwing around in every little sea, frankly.
And were we pitting windshields in southern Spain?
Well, this is what we don't know. So the suggestion was advanced that the 1 million watt radio station there at Jim Creek Naval Radio Station area thing had created a new set of environmental conditions where the
heretofore undiscovered.
That's right. The electrical oscillations of this massive radio station was creating sympathetic oscillations in the glass.
This is how you know it's good science.
You're shaking your head.
Well, it just reminds... Are we allowed to talk about Havana Syndrome?
Yeah.
Like, you remember this, right? Like,
sure.
It's ongoing.
It's still in the news.
U.S. military and diplomatic corps alike convinced that super undiscovered weapons were making them feel very sad or nervous, or
the Cubans,
or tummy aches or something.
On behalf of the Russians, are beaming microwaves at them.
Beaming weird waves that make us need to go to the potty or something.
Well, so people then go to the commander of the Jim Creek Naval Radio Station, George Warren, and they say, you need to address this window pitting.
We've got Havana Syndrome, and we live in Anacortes.
And George Warren says that this is absurd, and that car windshields would need to be several miles wide to even register the massive radio wave that they're creating. And
now, at the time, cars were a lot wider.
It's true.
But
what you say,
like even a Chevrolet in 1954 is not several miles wide. If my calculations are correct.
No, that's true. And unlike the Spanish radio tower, giant tower that's almost, that at the time would have been, well, and even now I think is in the top 5 tallest structures in Europe.
1,200 feet.
The Jim Creek station is actually designed across a valley. So it's got highly electrified cables strung across this valley.
It's not a single pylon.
No, the whole valley becomes an antenna. Yeah, try that, Soviets.
I feel like that's what we used to talk to aliens. Turn a valley in Puerto Rico into a big resonator to talk to space. I don't want to brag, but I just saw Close Encounters in a theater for the first time.
What? You're kidding me? And you never saw it before?
I've seen it 20 times.
Oh, okay.
But in a theater.
Where?
A film festival in LA was having me introduce a thing, and right before my event, I was like, Spielberg is going to present Close Encounters.
Did you meet Spielberg?
I didn't meet him, but I saw him talk about the movie before the movie started.
You're famous now. Yeah. Why?
If I was famous, I would have been hanging out with him in the green room.
Yeah,
I'm just a fan, delighting in his Richard Dreyfuss anecdotes.
Well, and the thing about Close Encounters, when you watch it now, is that the relationship drama between Richard Dreyfuss and his beautiful wife,
Terry Garr
Terry
fans here.
Garr, is a big part of the film and also very uncomfortable.
Yeah, that part is the house is very messy. The kids genuinely seem traumatized by what's going on. Having seen The Fabelmans, it makes me wonder if Spielberg is remembering his childhood of kind of the unstable, artsy, project-driven mom.
Right.
And is kind of making the Dreyfus character, filled with his memories and anxieties about his own mom.
I really liked The Fabelmans.
I did too.
Yeah, weird movie.
Mindy wouldn't see it. She's like, I am not seeing this.
Uncomfortable family.
Well, she thought it was some just Spielberg self-hagiography kind of a thing.
Oh, no.
And then when it turned out to be good, I was like, you missed The Fabelmans.
Yeah, it was pretty twisted.
She's okay. She's like, yeah, in my head, that movie's not good. I'm fine.
Well, anyway, so the commander, George Warren, rejects the theory. And so now there is, as you can imagine, a huge flood of suggestions and theories about what it might be. People suggest that maybe it's cosmic rays.
Got to be cosmic rays.
But nobody knows what cosmic rays are.
Still, to me, that makes it easier to believe in.
Even now, but especially
it's just like
then.
God.
Cosmic rays? Well, how are they doing this? Nobody knows. Maybe it's some kind of atmospheric event that's causing this dust. I mean, the dust is falling from the sky.
Is the dust that's found is not from the glass? Like new dust is being created by whatever causes
it's a kind of black dust that appears to be connected to this. But what atmospheric event could that be? There's a lot of coming back to nuclear testing. But
when you got hammer, everything looks like a nail. Everybody's worried about nuclear testing, and suddenly there's windshield pits.
Somebody says that it might be the ground-up skeletons of coral and sea creatures from the South Pacific.
I have to say, John.
Yes.
Occam's razor leads me to believe it is not the ground-up skeletons of coral and other sea creatures from the South Pacific.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, since nobody knows how the gyre even works,
it seems like it would be difficult for it to get straight from Bikini Atoll to Bellingham with nobody noticing it in the intervening distance.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Now, one of the most plausible theories is that in the course of making the glass, because what is glass made of? Sand. In the course of making the glass that goes into autos, there was some considerable batch of glass.
It's just a manufacturing flaw.
Well, not just a manufacturing flaw, but in the sand were sand flea eggs.
Oh.
And the sand flea eggs survived the glass-making process and are now hatching.
There's no evidence for any of these crazy theories, but I love how crazy they are.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And there were people reporting that the bubbles were appearing as they watched.
Oh, is that true?
And then creating these divots as the sand flea larva escaped the glass.
It's like Mexican jumping beans, but in windshield form.
There were a lot of people who said no to the sand flea egg theory, mainly because the glass-making process.
It's dumb as hell.
There's no sand flea egg that could survive the heat of the glass.
I mean, to me, I don't want to give away the ending because I don't know the ending, but like it's very tempting for me to think this is what was the entry we did about the smiley face killer, where people were convinced there was a pattern, but it turned out people were just noticing a common thing. Like, is anybody at the time saying maybe this is just a common thing that happens and we're just noticing it in this one locality?
Yes, a professor at the University of Washington by the name of D.M. Ritter is asked to investigate, and Professor Ritter says, this is not anything. This is
finally.
What are you talking about? This is just this is nothing. This is dumb nothing.
I think it's good to jump to that before sand fleas.
Yeah, well, and there was some of it, the black dust. Well, there was also a suggestion that because supersonic aircraft was a new thing, that somehow supersonic aircraft were creating sound, bombs, sound booms, as we call them.
Yeah, we always called them sound bombs.
Sound bombs. That supersonic booms were also somehow affecting the glass by bubble, or maybe they're the thing that are waking up the sound fleas.
That's why they're called sound fleas.
But Dr. Ritter
the sound wakes
says
them up.
This is not any of these things, and people start to call it. Now, this is all happening really fast. In the course of just a week, this has become a major thing, and it's being reported
It's a
across the
national
country.
story now?
Yeah. So at this point, the mayor of Seattle, Alan Pomeroy, is being assailed by people saying, you need to get to the bottom of this. And Pomeroy sends a telegram both to the governor of Washington and to Dwight D. Eisenhower, the president of the United States. And in it, he says, this is a national emergency, and we need
the National Guard.
We need to alert everybody to this, and all authorities need to. This supersedes the regular authority of the regional government agencies, and everybody needs to get behind this glass pox.
I'm going to declare martial law.
Short of that, but yeah, this glass pox thing is a major problem.
Glass pox.
Governor Arthur Langley can.
Did they say glass pox, by the way?
Glass pox.
Well, that
yes.
should have been the name of the show.
Well, I know. Sorry.
I just thought of this now.
Glass pox.
Glass pox.
Should we name it glass pox? We'll go back in time.
Too late. We can't.
Oh, all right.
It would be a lie.
Yeah, glass pox. Well, anyway, those of you listening in the future, distant futurelings who are raising their little sand flea antenna out of the glass,
the molten glass where you live,
the glass that allowed you to escape the apocalypse, you can just think of this as glass pox.
That can be your headcanon.
But Governor Langley convenes a group of scientists, a committee of scientists from the University of Washington that is made up of professors from the Environmental Research Department, the Applied Physics Lab, which we're very proud of here at the University of Washington, Applied Physics. They used to have a particle accelerator that they built under the campus out of 2x4s. I think they shut it down recently. But the Chemistry Department, the Physics Department, and the Meteorological Department convene all these scientists to get to the bottom of it. And they do a quick survey of 84 cars that they can lay their hands on. And they come back with their findings, which is that this is just the result of normal driving. And
just pebbles.
And one of the pieces of evidence for this is that there's no pitting on the back windows of any of these cars.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Nobody had noticed this.
Nobody had put this together. The back windows and side windows are not affected.
So it can only happen when the car's in motion, one would think.
That appears to be the case. But people reject the findings of the scientists.
As so often happens to scientists.
Specifically, a King County sheriff by the name of Harlan S. Callahan.
Who are you going to believe, scientists or a sheriff named Harlan?
And Harlan Callahan says that his deputies have examined over 15,000 cars.
What?
And found over 3,000 cars damaged, and he's collected some of the pellets. And according to the findings of the deputies, if you move the pellets around with a ballpoint pen, they don't do anything. But if you use a lead pencil, the pellets react violently to the lead.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so...
this guy's been reading too many comic books.
Yeah, so this then really emphasizes the role that this mysterious dust is playing in the epidemic. And Harlan Callahan gets... he sort of raises a lot of furor, as we say, Sheriff Callahan. And now people are really up in arms. Now there's a little bit of a cover-up happening. These scientists with their vaccinations and their secret
Why
committee.
won't they let us have the lead suits that will protect us?
That's right.
This is a microcosm for a lot of future America.
It really is. The Seattle police do an investigation, contemporaneous with the King County police. And the Seattle police began to conclude that all of the cars that have been damaged are older cars. And if you go to a car lot, all the new cars don't have pits in the windows, and all the old cars do. So when you examine 15,000 cars and 3,000 cars are damaged, those are the 3,000 cars that have been on the road the longest. And again, suggesting that this is just
wear and tear.
And so a sergeant of the Seattle Police Crime Lab, who's been devoting his energy during this period not to solving murders, but to investigating this, says,
I mean, given SPD's background, maybe you do just want them busy in the lab. Maybe,
yeah, that's right.
Maybe the death rates go down.
They could be doing worse. But he concludes, finally, definitively in the newspapers, that this is what he describes as 5% of this is actual copycat hoodlums who are like, ha ha.
We'll do the windshield thing.
Yeah, 95% of it he calls public hysteria. He says this is not only is are these damaged windshields just the product of normal driving, these are just rock chips, but also all the dust is just coal dust because we use coal. Bituminous coal at this point is a major component of how we create electric power in 1954.
Washington's not all hydro yet.
Not yet. And so this dust has been floating down on all of our cars and all of us this whole time. We just never saw it or noticed it. And these chips in the windshields have been here.
It's ironic. Like nobody noticed the pollution that was actually killing them until they could blame either young people or Reds.
Yeah, that's right.
And then suddenly,
or the nukes, right?
Or nukes.
By April 17th, in Washington, there is a general recognition that despite the work of Harlan Callahan, who took a while to get off of it, most people are no longer reporting rock chips. They go out and look at their cars and go, it's true. I'm driving a 49 Plymouth, and yeah, these all look like just normal chips.
I might just have these.
But it now spreads across the United States. By April 19th, reports have come in from California, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, Oregon, Wisconsin. In Ohio, in Canton, Ohio, over 1,000 people report damage to their cars. And there's a suggestion in Utah that this might be the result of acid being secreted by flying bugs.
That's a new one.
Yeah. It might even be the bees in the hives that so predominate in Utah.
Famously secreting acid.
Yeah, the acid
on our
bees. But gradually, by the end of April, all the way, across America, everybody has their moment with it, and all the local police departments all conclude the same thing, that this is just a nothing. And it ends up being an event that is cited in a lot of later investigations of collective delusion. It's a sort of a case study in how...
Because here it's the most banal thing possible.
Yeah.
Something we all know is common.
Yeah, we all have chips in our windshields, but nobody saw it before. And the combination of word of mouth and the involvement of the authorities, the reinforcement of the idea that by respected authorities at first, and then later as it spreads, the sense that the authorities are lying to us.
There must be something here, or the mayor wouldn't be trying to call in the National Guard, and the cops wouldn't be warning us.
That gives that a lot of power behind it. And then, Callahan is like, oh, this is an example of the truth is out there.
It's hydrochloroquine.
It's a classic example of how conspiracy theories get started, how collective mass delusion. I mean, if you think about all the people that believe that the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center are holograms, it all follows a very similar pattern, and this is often used in studies as an example of it.
It seems kind of related to the show we did on the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, the frequency illusion of how so much of life is invisible to you until you're attuned to it, and then suddenly you notice it everywhere. This just seems like a national furor caused by too many people having the Baader-Meinhof illusion at the same time.
Well, and what's interesting in all of the articles I read about it, including on History the historylink.org, which is the wonderful, wonderful local resource of Washington State history.
It's like a lot of old newspaper clippings and stuff, right?
No one in any of the studies connected it to the actual bikini tests, which the first bikini tests were in 1946.
Right.
And there was one, and then the second one created a massive nuclear cloud that contaminated the whole region. It was, I think now looking back, it was the first true nuclear disaster.
Yeah.
The bombs going off in Japan were an intentional disaster, but this was the first.
The first Chernobyl type.
And as a result of it, bikini tests were put on hold. There were only those early ones in 46. But they were, bikini testing began again in March of 1954. And in the course of the time between March 1st and April 15th,
when the first reports come in?
well, the first reports were, in March, early March, and then peaked on April 14th.
So it's an exact mirror for when people are seeing headlines about.
Yeah, there were 6 tests in Bikini Atoll, and then a final one on April 22nd.
Well, it seems like a cautionary tale for us about how tempting it is to trace everything back to whatever the headline grabbing technology of the day is. I wonder if today it seems very prudent to be like, hey, teen mental health is going off the rails. It must be
plastics in the food.
Yeah, or iPhones or, whatever it is we're worried about.
Yeah.
And then, years later that may not actually hold. Because, nowadays you look at so much of that stuff and it just seems like hysteria. Like, well, of course teens are going on crime waves. It's because of television or...
Yeah. Well, if you think about what's underlying a feeling that there's black dust and damage coming from the atmosphere significant enough to create pits in car windows, you've got to be thinking of the damage you're also getting pummeled with this stuff, whatever it is, radio waves, sonic booms.
It seems like
nuclear fallout.
Yeah, it's sublimated fallout fear, right? It's like whatever kills us will come from the sky.
Yeah.
That's why this is triggering my anxieties.
And it was probably hard to accept. Well, clearly it was hard to accept, like, no, it's just normal. It's already been happening this whole time.
So we add this to the smiley face killer in the set of like John Roderick omnibus entries where it seems like something interesting is happening.
Yeah.
But the turns out is that actually nothing, in fact, had ever happened.
One of my little corners of the omnibus is to always be pointing out that like you just said, the latest catastrophe always feels like it's absolutely an immediate and life-threatening.
This one's special and new.
Yeah, and this is the one that's going to end us. The killer bees, the famines, the whatever, the atmospheric holes, and then somehow we just keep puttering along. In this case, there was no glass pox.
The good thing we didn't call it the glass pox then, since it turned out there is no glass pox.
To the sand fleas of the future, you can go back to calling it whatever we called it.
Burrow back into your glass. Everything's going to be okay. And that concludes the Western Washington Windshield Epidemic. Entry 1422.RV0613, certificate number 40197, in the omnibus. Speaking of existential technological threats of our day, Havana Syndrome has forced John and me off of social media because they're trying to sap our precious bodily fluids with microwaves or something. But for a while, we could be found at Ken Jennings, at John Roderick, jointly at Omnibus Project. You could email us at theomnibusproject@gmail.com. The mailbox is full because we didn't record for a little while.
Yeah, what do you got over there? Anything good? Anything valuable?
What do we got? Justin and Dawn sent us their Christmas card from many, many years ago, on which I appear. Apparently, they went to a book signing I did in Milwaukee in 2005.
Wasn't that adorable? Look at you. And you're on their Christmas card.
It says, love, just a wonderful holiday season from Justin, Dawn, and Ken Jennings. They spoke for me.
My goodness, that seems a little presumptuous.
And then when Dawn's father died, they went through his apartment, took back their Christmas card and sent it to us. Thank you so much for thinking of us. Also a wedding invite from Allison and Andrew in October in Chicago. It's just to save the date, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's just to save the date, John.
All right, what is it, October 19th?
October 19th. We don't have an invite yet.
Do we have something planned for that day? We usually have, our calendar's booked pretty far out.
I always make something up when people want me to go to a thing.
Yeah, that's right. So we definitely are doing something that day.
Yeah. Boy, we'd love to be there, though. What else do we have here? Matt.
This 1997 Mercedes-Benz G36 AMG that I was looking at, apparently just now as I speak, sold for, what does it say? $28,993, which is $3,993 more than I was prepared to spend on it.
This is the one you were, like, right before we recorded this entry, you were pondering driving to West Virginia to pick up this Mercedes.
Yeah, I was very concerned that this is, I take medication for bipolar disorder, but it only treats it. It doesn't cure it.
Apparently not.
And every once in a while I'll locate myself in the moment and go, is this you being a kook? Or is this a reasonable thing for you to be doing? And I tested it out on you. Ken, what do you think about in the middle of this episode of Omnibus that I also be trying to buy this Mercedes G36? And you didn't give me a ton of sign.
You didn't really ask the outright question. You just said the car existed. And if you had said, Ken, should I impulse buy this car in West Virginia?
Right.
I think I would have said no.
You would have said no.
Yeah, you probably already have yes voices in your head. Let me be the voice of sanity.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what are the people in my life that nominally are there to keep me from danger. What would they say if I came upstairs and said, "Oh, by the way, I just bought a $30,000 truck"?
I feel like I see you maybe like every 2 weeks, so I hope I'm not the person in your life keeping you from danger.
Well, no, the thing is you didn't say anything. You just nodded with a kind of, with the television flat face.
I didn't want to get into it.
Yeah. I know. That's the thing.
Don't involve me.
You often do that.
Don't involve me
not
here.
My problem.
I'm a bystander. My life is complicated enough. I don't need somebody else's West Virginia Mercedes.
Well, anyway, let's just say that I didn't buy it, and I'm fine. I'm fine with it. The windshield was probably pitted. It was full of sand fleas anyway.
Matt sent us what he calls work swag, and it appears to be challenge coins, maybe some kind of parachute-themed pin.
Yeah.
And lanyards from where? Where do you work, Matt? It's all acronyms. LANLRADI. Lanolradi. If you see something, say something. I can't even pronounce that.
Is this some sort of DARPA thing? What do the challenge coins say?
Together, be prepared, prevent and protect, be essential. This is like
it's like some sort of Navy low frequency antenna.
Yeah, if you hear the voices in your head saying together, be prepared, prevent and protect, be essential, you've probably lost it. The challenge coin says institutional quality and performance assurance precedes excellence.
Challenge coins originally were like cool people
Military.
in the Navy SEALs giving you a coin that said like death from above.
Oh, this one's this got cooler. LANL stands for
Los Alamos.
You did it.
Nuclear Labs.
You did it. Well done.
Is that what it is?
I would never have got there. Yes. He must work at Los Alamos. Well, this is very cool.
Well, now that's cool. Here, throw me that.
Because of all the weird bureaucratic places where I don't care about the institutional quality. I mean, Los Alamos stands above them all.
What I don't need is more lanyards. I have like 7,000 lanyards. But these cool
very
things,
heavy coins at your head.
I have a lot of challenge coins. Some of them even were given to me. But these were given to me. given to us, but me.
If someone gives it to you, it's not a challenge. What's the challenge?
Well, the challenge is, look at that. I said death from above, and look, one of these things is an airborne ranger
It's a parachute
pin.
It's a parachute. But I'm not sure why there's an airborne ranger pin from Los Alamos.
Well, he might be also some kind of
Could be both.
some kind of parachute qualified Triad National Security LLC. Well, that's a private company. Is the Los Alamos National Laboratory a private? No, it says national right in it.
Are you not allowed to put national in your name if you're a private outfit?
I mean, I might complain. Wow. Oh, it's a national laboratory, not a nuclear laboratory. I got that part wrong.
Oh, sorry, you did say nuclear. That's true. The letters are very small.
I like it. It's got a diamond on it.
I'm trying to open something Cynthia sent us. John, I know you know most everything about aviation.
Yeah.
But Cynthia wonders if you've
Maybe.
heard this story. It's an.
I know you know everything, but here's something you don't know.
Well, it's
Jerk.
it's a whole. You're always pretending to be such an expert on the Aerial Nurse Corps of America. It's a book about, in fact, the Aerial Nurse Corps
The
of
Aerial
America.
Nurse Corps.
Written by Cynthia, our correspondent.
No kidding. And it also is a hardback book, and it is a big book.
The first aerial nurses, their events, their airplanes. Looks like the early history of female aviation.
Are they parachute nurses? How are they airborne and nursing?
They're flight nurses.
Oh yeah.
So like in-flight nursing.
Right, where you pick up injured and take them. You know, my dad did that in World War II.
Oh yeah.
He would fly in ammunition and fly out the wounded. And I'm guessing there must have been nurses on board. You don't want to just throw wounded in the back of a C-47 and leave them there.
It seems abundantly noted and noted and indexed, which makes me trust it. Over 350 historical photos, most never published before. Cynthia, thank you for sending this. She says, use it as a doorstop if it annoys you to receive a book. It would never annoy us.
No, never.
It would never annoy us to receive a book. Should I open one more thing? We have so much mail.
Yes, please do.
I know you get annoyed when I open things during the episode, but that means now I have all these closed boxes.
I can live with it, rather than you sitting over there opening and only
but
listening to me with half an ear.
But you know who suffers is the listener.
I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about me.
We do this show for you. You want someone to sit and listen quietly to you.
Yes.
And the recording and distribution of it is incidental.
Because I lean forward with my with my chin on my crossed hands, listening to you like a rapt
Sometimes
child.
you do the thing where you lean your chin on the backs of both hands with your fingers interknit, like you're thinking about Clark Gable.
Yeah, that's right, with big eyelashes
Big eyes.
fluttering at you.
Let's see. This is from Jared from Ohio.
What is it, Jared?
Jared believes you do not have enough chainmail in your life, so he sent you a jelly cube made of chainmail.
Oh! I thought he sent me some halberd.
A jerkin?
Here, throw it.
Toss it
But
gently in the air and see if Ken can quickly describe the geometric shape.
Okay, do it. Do it for yourself. Oh wait, I have to do it. All right,
I'm
throw it.
going to throw it to you.
Okay, this is very satisfying.
Well, I mean, when you hold it, it's cube-like.
Here it comes. Oh,
But during
bad toss.
in the air, it kind of deforms. Yeah, that could have taken out my laptop. In the air, it kind of deforms a little. This is very cool.
It is cool.
Have you ever seen solid chainmail?
No.
No, me either.
No, at first I looked at it and was like,
Whoa,
what
sorry.
could that be? And it's like chainmail all the way down. Oh, this is a very cool little weird thing.
There's a PS to me. Oh, he started weaving chainmail during COVID. That is the best COVID hobby.
It is. This is rad.
But I, on the other hand, he thinks do have enough chainmail in my life. So he sent me a keychain with
chainmail.
with much less chainmail.
Are you going to take that to work? That suggests that you're a LARPing and possibly like sex weird person.
First of all, it's called Historical Combat Reenactment.
Sorry.
The LARPing guys have all kinds of weird personas and stuff. We are just interested in actually reviving lost historical martial arts. It's so different.
Yes, I know. But these chainmails, none of them are made out of iron. That's the problem. Everybody's like, the lost arts. And it's like, your chainmail's made of aluminum,
Of
ding
course
dong.
it's nice.
Yeah, nobody's going to, you can't, that doesn't
What do you
protect
think? What do you think your cube would weigh? if it were made of iron.
This cube? I don't know. Is it made of aluminum? Am I not wrong?
I would assume so. This feels very lightweight.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeForest. I guess I didn't mean to dox you, but I forgot your first name.
What's really
Jared. Thank you, Jared.
What's rad is that all of the chains are doubled. It's like doubled,
Consider using it as a paperweight,
but not welded.
play catch, and or desk fidget toy.
Yeah, that's really a great fidget.
It is a
it's
good.
got
it's a good
heft.
fidget toy, yeah.
It feels like it almost sort of feels like a ball of slime.
Yeah, the way it quivers like a D&D gelatinous cube is very cool.
Yeah, gelatinous cube.
Thank you, Jared. Send us weird stuff. Why not? It makes the show longer.
Oh, look at this. If I put it on the table and just gently massage it like I'm petting a cat.
It looks like you were petting a cat.
And it feels kind of like you're petting a metal cat.
So if you can't have pets in your building, just make a cube out of chainmail.
If you're allergic to cats, this is the next best thing.
What if you're allergic to chainmail? The best way you can support the show, the best way would be to send us your personally woven chainmail items.
COVID chainmail cubes.
The second best way to support the show is to go to patreon.com/omnibus project and make up for your lack of ironworking ability by making a small donation that will make you a supporter of the show and give you access to an amazing panoply of perks and prizes, including
panoply of perks and prizes.
So many perks and prizes. A panorama. A plethora of perks and prizes, including early access to the week's show, ad-free, which is very cool, and a monthly addenda show, and, in fact, access to the standing archive of over 50 omnibus entries you have never listened to that have no real research or educational content whatsoever.
Nope, they're just us defensively replying to your letters.
If you listen to Omnibus and think, I wish they would just not even try to go back to the Wikipedia entry, then the addenda show is for you.
Futurelings, although social media is a hot garbage pile and increasingly cooling off. It was a hot garbage pile, and now it's just turning into just the ash of a hot garbage pile.
It's freezing over.
Because I am permanently banned from Twitter, and every time I log on, it reminds me that I'm permanently banned. What I get when I go to Twitter is not a feed made up of the people that I used to follow. It's not my fun friends.
You get the actual stuff that's there now, which is white supremacists and flat earthers.
It's crazy what it shows me. Awful, awful, awful. And it's not just confined to like, oh, these are MAGA wackos. It's awful sex stuff, awful, like, people doing, like...
Weird quack stuff they're trying to sell you.
Well, and also, like, the worst of progressive politics that appear to be there and emphasized by conservative partisans who are trying to make the left look crazy. Everything on there makes me either mad, upset, or grossed out. Mostly 80% grossed out. And I'm like, was this here all along? And I was just busy hanging out with funny weirdos? Kind of. But it's so much worse now.
Is there a reason you're doing the social media thing, even though I already did that and you were just supposed to say...
Oh, you already did it because this is my episode. Futurelings from our vantage point in your distant past.
I kind of thought you were going to say something like that. But hey, if you have more thoughts about the weird, the creepy ads on X.
No, it's terrible. Stay off of it. From our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come. But if the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may have been our final word. But if Providence allows, we wish you many goods and cheese and hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.